Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the session about Hotpatch with Windows Server and Azure Arc. I'm Artem Pronichkin, and I'm from Windows Server OS team, and we have Vishal here.
Hello, I'm Vishal. I'm actually a product manager with the Hotpatch team, working on ensuring you have a faster, accelerated security of your machines without the need of a reboot.
And today we have in the agenda a section about introduction to Hotpatching, and then how Hotpatching works with Windows Server, and finally how you can manage Hotpatch with available tools. So, Vishal, can you tell us about what Hotpatch is and why it is so great and what's important about Hotpatching?
Absolutely. Now, before we get in there, right, I would like to also remind everyone that how our security landscape is changing across the world, right? We have cybercrime that's on the rise. We have this added pressure on IT teams to ensure that they can secure the devices faster, and they don't like any of the user disruption that happens in that process. So there's a lot of pressure that's inbuilt into our system to make sure our devices are secure, and that's where hot patching comes into the picture. From a hot patching perspective, hot patching is the ability for you to install security updates on your machine without the need of a reboot. And the way we achieve it is by modifying your running code in memory so that your applications that are running are secure at the moment you install your update without the processes having to recycle or restart.
Okay, so Vishal, I'm hearing that Hotpatch doesn't require reboot, which is great. But does it mean that I never need to reboot for updates, or there are some scenarios where I do need to reboot, but just not every month? How does it work?
That's a very good question, Artem. So in today's standard patching world, right, every second Tuesday of the month, you would be actually getting a cumulative update from Microsoft that contains both security and non-security updates. And every month you would be installing it on your machine, and that would need a reboot for the actual applications or updates to take into effect. If you were to opt into hot patching, then the first month of every 3-month cycle, you will be taking the same exact standard update that Microsoft offers. And if you're opted into hot patching, then what happens is you jump into a hot patch servicing train, where the next 2 months you're offered security updates, and those security updates, when installed on your machine, does not need for your machine to be restarted, right? And the first month that we're talking about, where you took the standard update, in our terminology, we call it a baseline update from a hot patch parlance perspective. Now, after the 2 months of a hot patch update, the next month is the April update, where you would actually land again taking the baseline update or the standard update provided by Microsoft. Now, this brings back all the non-security updates that you missed during the hot patch months. So from a hot patch perspective, the hot patch months, you only get security updates for your OS that you install on your machine without a reboot, and non-security updates comes back in the baseline month. And after the baseline month, you again are offered in May and June the hot patch updates that does not need your machine to take a reboot, followed by another baseline, and that cycle continues throughout the year. But remember, we do not guarantee that you will have 8 rebootless updates in a year. We aim for 8 reboots today, but you could have a scenario where there is a vulnerability that we cannot hot patch, and that may cause us to ask you to take another reboot during a hot patch month, because we do prioritize security over the rebootless experience that you receive. But in such a scenario, we would be giving forenotice to everyone that, hey, this would be a month where you will not be getting a hot patch, but it'll be an unplanned baseline from that perspective.
Great. So in this example, January is a baseline, and I have to reboot on January, and then there are 2 months, February and March, where I don't need a reboot, and then another reboot in April, and so on. But what if I need to reboot for another reason somewhere in between?
You can definitely do that. So if you are, say, in the hot patch train and say you want to install, say, a driver update, right? Or if you have a definition file for MDE or anything else that if it asks you to do a reboot, you can do a reboot. It doesn't throw off you the machine off your hot patch cycle. The only thing that happens is that you install the updates and you need the machine to reboot if it asks you to do so. So any update that does not need your OS version to change, you can install that safely and take the reboot if needed without getting off the hot patch train.
Okay, and what if I install, for some reason, a non-hot patch update between? What happens then?
So if you plan to install like a cumulative update in February, right? Even though you got, say, a Hotpatch update in February and you want to install a February cumulative update because it has a non-security update that's needed for your machine, you can always do that, right? You can always install a standard update on top of your Hotpatch update, or even before a Hotpatch update, you can install it, but that throws you off the Hotpatch servicing train, right? And that would mean that the next offering of Hotpatch would happen after the next baseline. So for example, if you install the standard update, which caused your machine to take a reboot, you will not be offered a March Hotpatch update. And the next Hotpatch update that will be offered is the one after the next baseline, which is your May Hotpatch update.
Perfect. Now it makes sense. And what about .NET Framework updates? Do they include in Hotpatch or installing separately? How does it work with them?
So the .NET Framework update, for the last couple of years, they have been actually trying to have it released along with our baseline months so that you can install them together and have one single reboot. But it could happen in the future that they might have a security reason why they would have to release something during a Hotpatch month, which may need a reboot. But for now, we have actually tried to make sure that they can release it along with our baseline months.
Great. So in this example, we expect .NET Framework updates to happen in January and April, and then in July, and then we reboot anyway, and this is how we consume the .NET Framework updates.
Exactly.
Sounds great. Okay, so now it all makes sense, and I understand it much better now. Thanks, Vishal. So let's talk about how we can deliver Hotpatch for Windows Server. So first of all, I heard that this awesome technology is only available on Azure, and it's not available for on-premises machine. Is it the case today, or this is going to change?
So Artem, yeah, absolutely. Then this is going to change, right? We started with Azure hosts having Hotpatches on them, and then we started to bring that technology to our customers who are on Azure. And we brought it in the way of having Azure Edition images being published to the marketplace that our customers today, anyone today, can actually go and leverage. We started with 2022. We are now on 2025 Azure Edition to have Hotpatch capability that you can avail of today at no additional cost to you. But then we heard from our customers that, hey, why don't you bring this goodness to our data centers that we have on-prem or even on other clouds? And so we heard the customers, and we actually bringing this capability now to our customers who are Azure Arc connected. So if you have a Server 2025 machine that's Azure Arc connected, you can avail of this feature as an opt-in capability for your Arc connected machines. The capability today is actually in preview. As of today, you can actually go and try it, but we will soon be releasing it out for everyone to consume as a generally available capability for their machines.
Okay, sounds great. And you actually had me at the part that you said it's free in preview. Can you show how it works for today so I can use it today and try it out?
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me give you a quick demo, and that will actually help you clear up on how we are going to go about opting into Hotpatch and how it all works. So let me bring it all together. So we start by going to our Azure Arc connected machine on Azure Arc portal. So here you can see that there's a machine that I already have with Azure Arc connected. It's a Server 2025 data center. It's sitting on my machine. And we go to that particular machine's page. And towards the bottom, you will see there are multiple options that you can select for your Azure Arc connected machine. One of the services is Hotpatch. It's not enrolled right now. You can click on that Hotpatch button. It brings you a screen where you can actually opt into Hotpatch by clicking on this box. You will also notice that virtualization-based security is turned on your machine. This is a prerequisite for your machine to enroll into Hotpatch. If you do not have this enabled, we will not allow enrollment into Hotpatching at this stage. So you will have to have virtualization-based security enabled on your machine before you can enroll into Hotpatching. So after a few refreshes, you'll notice that Hotpatch is now enabled on your machine. Now, this is a screen where we are actually on the machine, and when you do a Windows Update scan, you will notice that a Hotpatch capable update is now offered to your machine, right? You can go ahead and install it, and you will notice that this installs pretty quickly on your machine, and it would not cause your machine to take a reboot. You'll see a nice green banner which says, hey, great news that the latest security updates is installed and you would not need a reboot, right? And to make sure that that's actually real and it's no slick of hands, you will actually notice that we here look at the version of the OS, and you'll notice that the version of the OS has now changed to a .3403 from a .2894. And there is no significant any impact to your CPU cycle as well. So you will notice that, hey, your CPU has also not actually shown any spikes.
Thanks, Vishal. That was great. And now I understand how it works, and it's really helpful. Let's talk about how you can manage hot patching, right? Because I think that's the most important topic. So first of all, what do I need to have hot patch enabled?
Absolutely. Now, that's a very good question. Like, yes, this is available today for you. Now, you should think about this as like, if you have a Windows Server 2025 machine, doesn't matter whether data center or a standard, that you have it running either on a physical machine on your data center, as a guest VM on your data centers, on your on-premise, or even if you have in other clouds, a VM on Server 2025, and they are Azure Arc connected, you can opt into hot patching as an optional feature for that particular VM or physical machine. But you also need to remember that virtualization-based security, which is also known as your virtual secure mode, should be turned on those machines. This is a prerequisite for hot patching to work, because without that, we will not have hot patching run smoothly on your machine, right? So that's a prerequisite that's needed for hot patching to begin with.
Perfect. Okay, so I can use any Windows Server 2025 pretty much, and I can just go to Azure portal and enable hot patching as long as I'm Arc enabled. That's great.
Absolutely.
And here's a link for more information if you want to learn more about those technical requirements. So let's talk about how do you manage this? Because, of course, you have to manage it somehow, right?
Absolutely. So the very basic way of how you would manage is like, if you have opted into hot patch, and doing a Windows update scan will not offer you an update that would cause you to get off the hot patch train. If you have all the prerequisites in place, then you should not have a problem of getting all the hot patches directly through Windows Update. So it's as simple as just doing a Windows Update scan, and you offered a hot patch during a hot patch month and a regular baseline update during a regular baseline month. Now, if you have installed an update, like a cumulative update during a hot patch month, then you're off the hot patch train, as I had explained earlier. But other than that, a Windows Update scan would get you what you need, right? But then, of course, you have external tools as well who can actually build that experiences for you as a customer using the APIs that are already available, both for enrollment of hot patching or even doing a Windows Update scan to get you the updates. So the external tools are open for them to build those experiences today for hot patching. WSUS, which is a common tool that's used, is not currently supported and is on the way for deprecation. So it was not yet planned for supporting hot patches going forward. But Azure Update Manager, which is already available, is ready for you to have those rich experiences if you want to manage your hot patch updates. It's available today for you to manage any Azure Arc connected machines, and it's available at no extra cost to you in case you have software assurance.
Great. And I remember you showed in the demo Windows Update, right? So that's like the simplest way to use hot patching, and you don't need any tools for that. But if you want to use external tools, or you can use Azure Update Manager, that's great.
I have to confess, Artem, that I also use sconfig, which is a no-no.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for that. So sconfig also works just as Windows Update on local machines. So that's great. And people can use also external tools if they use to those tools.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Azure Update Manager is also free if you use Windows Server Pay-as-you-go. So if you are a volume license customer with the SAY, you can use it for free. If you are Windows Server Pay-as-you-go customer, you can also use Azure Update Manager for free. And in all other cases, it's still a paid service that you can use if you like, and if you need a centralized way to manage all the updates, including hot patches. So I think I have the last question is, how do I track that hot patches are installed and that I'm compliant and that I'm up to date and secure?
Yeah, this is a very common question we get from our customers. And I think we've worked with a lot of our software vendors, and we have actually published externally for these vendors to look at on how do they look at hot patching, right? Of course, the basic thing is that you need to have virtualization-based security running, which actually powers the whole magic of hot patching on your machine, right? That's one definite requirement that you need to have going. But from a compliance perspective, when you install a hot patch, it does change the OS version of your machine with a minor version that is lower than your standard update that you could have installed, right? If you take the example of March, right, then for March, the minor version for Hotpatch is 0.3403, while the standard update that was released for March is 0.3476. If you have either of these installed on your machine and you do the version of your OS, you are 100% secure for March, right? And that's how we look at compliance, that if you had this installed, then you would be secure. The machine is secure and it has the same guarantees as if you would have installed a standard update on that particular month.
Great. And I can even tell whether I have Hotpatch or regular update.
Absolutely. And if your compliance software is actually flagging a Hotpatch patched machine from being non-compliant, please ask them to open a ticket with us so that we can go and address it, but it should not happen.
Yeah, it should be as easy as checking for the right version number, but yeah, there can be mistakes or people may not understand that the lower number is good enough if it's Hotpatch. Yeah, so something to definitely keep in mind. Thanks, Vishal. So now I feel much better and I feel confident that we can track compliance and make sure that everybody is updated. And I can check on my machine, check the build number and see whether I have the latest update installed and whether it's Hotpatch or not. So I think the last question that I have, and perhaps it's the most interesting question for people watching, is how much does it cost? How do I pay for this? And what does it take to get Hotpatches?
Absolutely. And I think we have been thinking about this a lot. And so today, as you all know, we are in public preview. It is available at no additional cost to you. You can go and use it, right? Later this year, right, we would be actually making this as a paid opt-in service where you would be charged per core that you actually have on the machine, right? It could be a physical core. It could be a virtual core based on whether you have a physical machine or a virtual machine. The current pricing theory is that we'll be actually charging $1.50 per CPU core for your machine, right? And so think of it like if you actually have a machine that takes about 3 hours or 3 man hours or 3 days for you to patch, consider the amount of time that you would save from not having to reboot that machine at all. And so the charge that we have for like a 4-core machine on your VM is about $6 a month, right? And that would save you the reboot, stopping the application and making sure that you don't have to reboot your machine and all that time that's lost from productivity and having to set up a new machine failover. All of that is gone, right? And so we are thinking of this as $1.50 per core for your machine.
Great. And if I'm running on Azure, if I'm using Data Center Azure Edition, it is still free, right?
Yes. So if you're using Azure Edition, that's available again today at no additional cost to the customer. As long as you're using an Azure Edition VM on Azure, there is no additional fee for that. But yes, for our connected machine that you will have off Azure, there's a small fee that, as I mentioned.
Yeah. So we don't change anything for Azure customers, but we just extend Hotpatch service to other customers who couldn't use Hotpatch before, and now they can if they Arc enable and subscribe to this new service, which is great. I think a lot of people will be willing to consume Hotpatches because it saves time, it saves you uptime, it saves your mental health, and you can spend more time with your family and your friends instead of worrying about how to install updates every month.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think we have heard from a lot of customers is about running stateful machines, right? Which takes a lot of time for draining out all the connections before they can reboot. This saves them a lot of time. And also if you're in the financial companies or any other company where you have some applications that have been created a long time ago, then rebooting that puts at risk your time on how much it takes for you to go and bring up those machines, update those machines, and go through the checklist, right? All of that is gone when you're thinking about Hotpatching in these months.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I can really see how it can save time and money for me as if I were a customer.
And besides that, it's also accelerating security, right? Like, for example, on a Patch Tuesday, you release it, you go through your first ring of machines where you install Hotpatches. And if you like it, the very next day, you can go ahead and install it on the other machines. You don't have to bring them down. You don't have to wait for a weekend. You don't have to have that whole patch cycle on a second week or 3 weeks later, right? So you can do it on the same exact month, accelerated security. And then if you decide to reboot for some other reason, you can do it later, right? On your planned maintenance windows.
Yeah. And this is where Azure Update Manager can help, right? It can help you orchestrate when you install update to which machines. And this is how you can manage it from the single pane of glass.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right, Artem.
Thank you. I think I don't have any more questions, and now I'm convinced that Hotpatch is great. And again, if I were a customer, I would pretty much love this feature to use it on my machine and my data centers. So if you have any feedback for us about this presentation or Hotpatching or managing Hotpatches, please use this link to send us some feedback. We would appreciate this. And we would be very interested to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. Like, please send us feedback as much as possible. We are still building those experiences for you. Tell us what works. Tell us what does not work so that we can make it better.
Okay, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks, Vishal. I think it was very interesting and very entertaining. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.